Hello. Bathed in yellow I am because it's so dark. 4 minutes past 4 p.m. and we're in the night. Okay, another one of my thoughts. I've got two to do actually. SX says, bro, what's your thoughts on being invited for cancer screening in healthy adults? What's your thoughts on being invited for cancer screening in healthy adults? Number one, how do you know you're healthy unless you go screening? You don't know, do you? I think on the whole it's a good idea. I think anything that's caught early and treated obviously can only be a good idea. There are false positives with tests sometimes, and there's false negatives with tests sometimes. They can cause great anxiety, can't they, really, when you think about it? If you get diagnosed with something and then you're told, oh, sorry, you got it wrong. So that's a worry, definitely a worry. But on the whole, I think screening of any sort is a positive thing. It's got to be, really. Yeah, I've got nothing more to say on that, really. I do know with prostate cancer, for instance, in men, this is an odd one, really, because this is going, for the last sort of few years, it's been going round and round and round, that they've been getting false reports and stuff like that, false... Sometimes you get a negative reading, it should be positive. Sometimes you get a positive reading, it should be negative. And all that worry and upset and what have you is a terrible, terrible thing. So if those people didn't go, they wouldn't have that to cope with. However, for those that do go and they do get diagnosed and they get treated, then it's a great thing, isn't it? So on the whole, I think it's a positive thing. With prostate cancer, I do know that they reckon something like, for men in their 60s, they reckon 50% of men in their 60s have some form of prostate cancer. Now, mostly it doesn't grow, it doesn't affect them, and there's nothing to worry about, mostly. So if you're diagnosed when you're 60, if a doctor or whatever says, you've got cancer, well, the alarm bells start ringing and the panic sets in and all the rest of it. Especially, of the prostate. So, do you need to be told that or not? I read a report a long time ago that men in their 70s and 80s, they reckon when they die, they reckon there's 8 out of 10 of those men had prostate cancer. Now, they weren't diagnosed, they weren't treated, nothing was mentioned to them. They died of something else, but that was just another factor, something else in the background. It wasn't what they actually died of, but it was just something in the background. So, for those men, they didn't need any treatment. There was nothing that anybody needed to say or do or whatever. So I've got a little bit of a problem with being diagnosed, screened and then diagnosed with prostate cancer, because it doesn't really matter. Obviously, if it does grow and it's picked up early and it's treated and that person lives a long, healthy life, then that's fantastic. If you look at the stats, everybody says about that, oh, but statistics show this, that and the other. Yeah, they can show anything, can't they, really? If you pick a man of 60 and you bring him in for screening and it says that he's got prostate cancer, now you can make a patient of him. You can then start treating him with however they treat prostate cancer. I presume it's initially it would be orally, wouldn't it? It'd be medication. Then perhaps they cut it out, basically, So you've made a patient of that person. If that person goes on to live another 10 years, then that's a success. you know, we saved this man's life. You know, we had him in for screening and he lived for another 10 years. However, if you didn't have that man in and he died when he was 70, he wasn't a patient, but he still had prostate cancer. So that's the problem I got with stats and all the rest of it. But short and sweet video this really. I think on the whole, I mean, there's lots of pros and cons with everything you do in life, and you've got to make up your own mind what's right for you. If you get invited to do anything medically, there's pros and cons, and you've got to think it through, weigh up your options, all the rest of it. Do you want it? When you get to a certain age, do you want anything? If I was 70 and I was invited in for a test, I'd turn it down. I could not care less. You know, if you've got people with prostate cancer, they can go live on for another 30, 40, 50 years. So if I was 70 and I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, who the hell cares? Who cares? It wouldn't make any odds, would it? If I could live another 20, 30, 40 years, which would mean I'd be about 100 and odd, I wouldn't need to go in for my screening. I just wouldn't need to. However, of course, if we look at other cancers, breast cancer and things like that, then yeah, cervical cancer, breast cancer, etc., I think are very, very good, and I think they're worth going for. Well, they're definitely worth going for. I mean, that's been proved. And stats, I think the stats are there to prove that that is a good form of screening, something good to go to. But yeah, your question is, what I think about screening in healthy adults. Well, prevention, isn't it? I think it's a good thing. If things are picked up early and are treatable, then that's a fantastic thing. But I believe there's pros and cons, and each person would make up their own mind. That's just my thoughts. I'm not medically trained or anything, that's just my thoughts. SX, thank you very much, take care, and be well. Ta-ra.